Blake, how far did you make it through college?
Well, my smart pals taught me everything after class, so they just barely got me across the finish line.
Welcome to the Church Garrett Podcast, where we pull the tech director out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, the only one of the two of us who graduated college, and I'm here with my boss, a man who didn't graduate that I now work for, proving that college is basically useless, Toby Walters.
Speaking of basically useless, Blake, you teed me up for that one.
I set myself up too much for that. That's
you
my
sure
fault.
Did. So, graduated college, no, but finished college, sure. I was done. Does that count?
That's the creative answer one gives.
Now, I think I actually, tell the story on the podcast of how close I actually got to finishing, so I won't go into those details here. What I wanted to talk about is kind of like the education I received back in 1998 when I started college. And funny thing, do you remember that Brian, our tech director, and I were both in recording classes together in college?
That's right. He's actually got a recording somewhere in the digital verse of one of your really, really early on songs that I want to release at some point.
Yes. So back in the day, which was...
Back in my day.
I know. When were you born? 93?
Yep.
So when you were 5 years old and I was in college...
I'm not that young anymore, though. 29. I'm about to hit 30. 30 is when you got to say I'm getting there.
Getting there. So we're talking like the era of ADATs were the new thing. And do you even know what an ADAT is?
ADAT over there. ADAT over there. In the South.
Good try. So ADATs were kind of one of the first generation of digital recorders that were all the rage. So you would, think of, what a VCR is, Blake?
Yes, I used to put the first Star Wars movie, which everyone hates, as the prequels, into a little VCR in the back of a minivan. We'd go on road trips.
So ADATs literally would record onto super VHS tapes.
Oh, there were super ones?
Super, but it was still digital.
VHS Plus.
And one of the greatest records of all time that used ADATs was Alanis Morissette's original record. So if you ever want to hear the sound of an ADAT, listen to Alanis Morissette's first record, the big one that was super famous.
Yeah, that's the same record I listen to every night before bed.
Obviously. So Brian and I were in this recording program at a community college learning with ADATs. And it was like the very first generation of Pro Tools. It was like stereo Pro Tools. It wasn't even multi-track yet. And we still had a reel-to-reel recorder. And so our teacher would come into class every morning, and granted, half the time he was a little hungover from the night before.
Are you serious?
Yes. Nicest guy, but he would come in, and to date myself, he would literally have the paper with him. Have you ever read the newspaper, Blake?
The paper, the New York Times.
Have you ever read a newspaper in physical form?
I've got a couple magazines that I read that are from various hobbies.
That's close
publications. Enough. It's a physical piece of paper. I read my bills when I have to pay those that they still send in the mail every now and then, which is
you read them and then tear them up and be like, nah, I'm good.
Well, I actually just forward them to your address every time.
So, back in 98, we're doing ADATs, we're doing Mackie 24-channel mixer, a reel-to-reel. And so it's amazing to see some of these production schools that are coming up today and the level of things they get to do. And I'm super excited to talk to our guest just sort of about the new world of education that production people have the option of doing now.
Oh, yeah. The degrees and the courses that are actually out there in comparison to what there used to be are just unparalleled by comparison. And so we're going to bring in Ryan Loche, who is a pretty big deal. Academic director at the Beloningco. This is day 2 or recording 2 of our podcast episodes at FILO conference. So you might hear some background noise. Someone might jump on the mic. Who knows? We were recording it live. So let's go to that recording now. We're live from FILO conference, and we're here with the academic director at the Beloningco, Ryan Loche.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
Toby, do you think Ryan looks like a liar? Got him in person. He's not on Zoom.
He's got this very astute professor look to him.
Yeah.
Which he kind of is.
It's the
cultivating that
glasses.
for a long time.
So I don't know professors to be liars, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and think maybe he did lie to us.
It's definitely not professors. It's the people in the academic financial counseling office that are liars. They'll be like,
yes.
Yeah, finance
Take
departments
out
are
this
hard.
loan. This is a good move for you.
yeah, well, you'll only need $5,000 next year. Oh, every year it goes up by $2,000? You didn't say that at the beginning. Okay, so Ryan, I'm going to read out your truths in one line. When we lock it in, let us know if we're right.
Okay.
Okay, so number 1, I was in a boy band and toured local proms at the height of the NSYNC and Backstreet Boys craze.
That's in sync, buddy.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
okay.
I
So
guess I'm dating myself at this point. In sync?
hang on,
You can't
I'm a
read in
kid of the
sync?
90s.
But you can't read in sync?
All right, I am Ron Burgundy. I will read exactly as it is. I didn't think to make that that was an acronym.
That's
not
amazing.
I'm
How
ashamed.
embarrassing for you. That's more embarrassing than Ryan perhaps touring local proms.
Yeah.
It is. And here's the thing. I don't get embarrassed often. I am embarrassed at that. I should have known that one.
That's great.
Okay, number 2. I've gotten to hang out with Weird Al Yankovic multiple times.
Yankovic.
Yeah.
We rehearsed this ahead of time.
John Malkovich, Jan Yankovic. I mean, I don't know.
Jan
Number
Yank.
3. I'm an original Halo regional champion. Number 4. We couldn't get MIDI time code to work one Christmas, so I manually ran 1,500 light cues to Lincoln Brewster's Miraculum.
How could he possibly run 1,500 manual light cues?
Well, I haven't seen his hands yet. Maybe he's got 1,500 fingers.
Maybe he's the guy from Princess Bride with the 6 fingers.
Or he's Doctor Strange, where his fingers just started splinting off
That'd be
into
better.
fractional madness.
Right, right.
Okay.
All right, number 5. In what was a difficult season, my family of 4 lost 11 hamsters over the course of a single calendar year.
Dang.
Did you get a cat at the beginning of that year as well?
We've had the same cat for 16 years. He's a peach.
I don't know. He might be a
Was he
secret-
getting fatter that year, unexplainedly?
All right, number 6, and finally, my team had to catch John Christ halfway through his show to let him know he'd been on stage for 45 minutes with his fly down.
I want that one to be true.
How obvious was it down, though? Like, it was a bad obvious?
I mean, it would belie whether this is a lie or not to be able to back up the
That's
story,
true.
right?
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's
All right.
quite visible.
Toby, I'm not drawn to any of these. I'm going to jump on your back, your bandwagon, your coattails like I normally do.
I'm going to go with the Halo regional champion. I feel like the rest of the things are like just way too specific. And he threw out that Halo thing. Like maybe he loves Halo, but he was never actually a champion.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to pivot now that I've had some time to think. I'm going to say that those 11 hamsters is too much. No one would buy that many. It's probably like 7. So I'm going to lock in at hamsters.
Wow. You literally got it right. I just changed the number. It was 7. We did lose 7 in one calendar
Don't tell
year.
Blake he's right.
This is
Not
the
not
best.
11. But you not only did you catch the lie, you averaged down to where exactly it was.
Wow.
It was 7. So it was very tragic for sure.
This is your moment, Blake.
I've never
Yeah.
told y'all this, but the psychic does run in my family, but we're Christians, so we
Right.
don't believe in that.
Right. It's prohibited by the Bible.
Okay, well, tell us about like the 1,500 light cues that
Yeah.
you were running manually.
So yeah, we were trying to get MIDI time code going for that. Came from a couple thousand person church in middle of California. Was the experience and worship pastor there for about 20 years. Would have been maybe 4 years ago or so, and we decided we wanted to make like a dancing lights, kind of in the vein of that Trans-Siberian Orchestra Christmas lights show that's on like the side of a house, like that viral video that went out. So we programmed the whole thing so where like every hit of the song basically was doing something. But MIDI time code, in typical church fashion, we didn't purchase the right pieces of equipment to make it happen by Christmas. So since I programmed the light show, it was up to me at that point to sit there and kind of, luckily I have like experience with like rhythm games, Dance Revolution, all that kind of stuff. Like,
and
so
apparently
just-
Halo.
And Halo too, yeah. But I was basically playing along with the song and kind of just tapping all the light cues and making the room go. And then soon as it was over, we had to run up on stage and do like the next part of the Christmas program. So that was like a frantic, I think we had like 8 shows that year.
I never
yeah.
put 2 and 2 together, but essentially you're saying lighting designers sometimes are finger drummers.
Yeah, it was a rhythm game for me.
Yeah.
And like I would, if I slipped, like I could tell and I'd have to like kind of compensate for it. But yeah, it was very like Zen-like for
Did
the
anyone
little 4
notice?
minutes. Just our team. I mean, because it's dark in the room, everybody enjoyed it. Like, but yeah.
So you didn't say you perfectly ran 1,500 cues.
No, I probably made 20 mistakes. After
Out of 1,500.
Well, 1,500 7 times.
And if no one noticed, though, if no one noticed, it didn't matter. So
we're
that's
talking
amazing.
just little beep, 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 beep. Yeah, like bouncing
I
with
mean,
the song.
Blake will make 20 mistakes in 19 tries.
Sure. Yeah.
That was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about meeting Weird Al Yankovic multiple times.
He was actually my introduction into music. I was just like a very, as a young guy, didn't really care about popular music. I was born early 80s. So should have been like way into Nirvana and all that, but didn't really care. But I got introduced to the music through Weird Al. So he was like my absolute favorite. So my parents, being great parents as they are, took me to every concert we could come. So we would catch him at dinner. We would catch him on the way to the bus. Got to the point where like when he saw us, like would recognize my family, would invite us and hang out backstage with him. And he's super funny. And yeah, it's been quite a while since I've done that. I need to carry the tradition with my kids now, but we haven't had a chance to do it yet.
And have you seen UHF?
I love UHF.
Blake, do you know what UHF is?
I do not.
No. It's a movie in the 80s with Weird Al.
That'd be the question, though. You guys are in tech here. Do you know what, like, UHF is? Not the movie, but, like, what?
I mean, generally speaking, it's waves, right?
Right, yeah.
I know
you probably know, but...
I want to see the Instagram post where your kids are calling him Weird Grandpa or Grandpa Weird. Weird Al.
Right,
Yankovic.
yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, tell us about the fly being down for John Christ halfway through his show. And
No, but his fly was down. We had to send our... what was he? The guy's name was Anthony. He was our connections guy, and he was the person that was like, "Hey man, like you need to catch him." So at the intermission, he pulls him aside and he's like, "Hey John, like, FYI, your fly's been down." Then John got up and he's really funny. Like he played it off and he's just kind of joking. Like nobody told him. Like the whole time he's up there, like not a single person said a word. Just let him do it. Like, yeah.
Did he have more set left?
Yeah, he got a half a set, and
Did he use that as a bit?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, about 5 minutes. Roasted Anthony, roasted us for not letting him know. He was a great guy.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, Blake, your fly's been down this whole time, this whole conference.
well, and I'm used to getting roasted by Toby, so I just wouldn't even notice.
Right.
Nope.
Be like, your fly's down. I'm like, I fly that way.
Right.
Okay, so let's get into some actual goodness after all of that. Tell us the history of the Beloningco. Like, how did it get started?
Yeah.
Why did you all meet on Tuesday nights specifically?
Sure. Yeah, so Pastors Alex and Henry started basically meeting with artists on a Tuesday night. So like typical cycle for artists in Nashville that are like in circuits for touring and stuff like that, they're going to be gone Sundays. Like they're going to be back on Sundays. So Henry and Alex started just doing a Bible study. I want to say somewhere around 2014 or so. Started doing a Bible study with some artists and friends and just started inviting people to it. I remember meeting with Henry because he's been connected with my brother and family for a long time through some other stuff. I remember my brother like saying like, "Man, you're gonna end up starting a church," and he was just saying like, "I'm just doing what the Lord wants." At that point, he had no intention of starting a church, but he was just meeting with people, and it's just grown and grown and grown into what it is now. So a couple of services on Sunday, Tuesday night, still meet there, and then a college, which is how I got involved. So yeah,
That's great. Did he do it specifically for NSYNC and their touring schedule?
right. If they would come,
He wanted to get in sync with
Yeah.
NSYNC, right, Blake?
yeah.
That makes total sense.
There was so we do really fun volunteer team parties and conferences. We had a volunteer party for Christmas, and there was actually a legitimate looking into what it would take to get Lance Bass, one of the members of NYSNC.
Judging
one
on
of
the shows he has cameoed on recently,
Yeah.
I don't think it takes much anymore.
Well,
you can
it
land
was-
that Bass on the line.
Yeah, we didn't get him, but it was definitely like we did like a '90s themed Christmas party, which was like fantastic. But that would have been the
It would have put it
moment
over
to
the
have him
top.
up
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Okay, so Ryan, you see a lot of church techs.
sure.
We see a lot of church techs. One of the things we have noticed with them is they're dropping like flies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all jokes aside, like it's honestly kind of concerning the amount of production leaders that are leaving the church in droves. So tell us how the Beloningco is bringing up the next generation of church tech directors. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have a real important part to play in keeping the church fueled with
Resource, yeah.
Yeah, some of the most important resource that no one knows they need, because no
Right.
one knows they need the tech director if they're doing their job, which
Yeah.
is kind of not good, because then you don't realize the behind the scenes stuff. So tell
Right.
us about that.
Yeah, so one of the core hearts of the house, the belonging, and the college is servant-hearted people. So I think one of the things that's really like blown me away about like the whole even just volunteer culture, which has now bled into the college, is just everybody is there to serve the mission of the Lord, to serve Holy Spirit, to help facilitate moments for people to come to know the Lord. And that is like the foremost thing that we try to build into all of our students. Like they do practicums, which is basically their hands-on experience with our ministry. And they're learning how to do what they're doing, but we're very, very keen on making sure that their spiritual health is in the right place. Because ultimately, when they finish their degree and they go get into a church, like all of the, tactile, hands-on work that they're doing, they're all real sharp. If you want to get into production, like you tend to spend enough time to learn how to do it. You don't really need like a bunch of like education for it. But for us, the big thing is to make sure that their heart's in the right place. And I know it's going to pay dividends. We're only at it for 2 years, so we've seen a couple go off at this point. But I know in the years to come, it's going to be incredible to just see these servant-hearted people ready to like jump into the church and help train others and build up others.
That's awesome. So I've realized that you and I have, sort of a little parallel situation, that we both came out of California and we both landed in Nashville to work with Christian education
Yeah.
in the like worship and tech space.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, on my experience, I went to a university that had existed for 100 years and had 100 years of tradition.
Yeah.
And so to try and, raise up the next generation of techs and worship artists, it was a battleground.
Sure.
And so are you finding with Beloningco that like you guys get to do things that you wouldn't normally get to do in the education space because Beloningco is a new thing and it's very, it's
Sure.
progressive in this climate?
Yeah, I mean, it's really neat that we're definitely poised to invent where we are, and I really appreciate we're an extension site of Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida, and they have a number of extension sites all over.
So you have
country.
accreditation then?
Yeah, you have and that's one of the big things that drew me to being a part of it, because it means a lot to actually not only finish a ministry, like being in ministry and getting a degree from it, but actually having that degree like mean something, be transferable, apply for stuff, and like we have business majors, psychology majors that are coming, so we're not like a strictly ministry school. But all that to say, Southeastern University has been very accommodating, and even like the way they're working, they're trying to figure out this educational space now in 2022, because education, church, I mean, the world is changing with technology and all that, and Southeastern's been great to be a part of like trying to help us figure out, okay, how can we actually give them credit for what you are trying to do, and finding out how to match that with the education.
Can they come to the Beloningco College and get like a degree or a certificate or?
Yeah, we have degrees, bachelor's degrees, associates, masters, and then we also have certificate programs that people can come get the certificate. You have to have a bachelor's, maybe an associate's. I think it's just a bachelor's, but you have to already have a degree to come do the certificate. And the big part of that is like we don't want someone coming straight out of high school just getting a certificate, because the certificate is good for experience, but we want you to actually have like that transferable bachelor's, associates, like an actual degree. If we can lean you that direction, we're going to go for that.
That's an interesting choice, though, because we've seen, I can't tell you how many tech directors, they spend middle school, high school volunteering in church.
Yep.
They go to college, at Full Sail or wherever, or Beloningco or wherever, for like a year.
Yeah.
And then they're done. They go to they get a full-time job.
Yep.
And they're off and running. So
Or they hit the road.
hit the road.
Yeah.
Like, do you guys wonder, not to put you on your toes, but just I'm curious. I mean, do you worry how many people you could be missing out on? Because we've seen that story repeat a lot.
Yeah. We do take people in for the certificates for sure, but again, not young, straight out. Like just because we really value, especially like all the degrees with Southeastern, you're going to spend some time learning some Old Testament, New Testament. There's some general ed, which I just like as a guy, I'm working on a PhD with Liberty, so I'm probably a little too skewed on how much education is awesome. Like I'm going to be the guy that's going to say education is awesome, but it genuinely makes you a more well-rounded person to go through the struggles of like doing some like lower level math and some English. Like it makes you a better person. It's hard to pitch that to an 18-year-old that's already connected. And like there's a couple of our students that are on tour with some big names already. And so they go out and then they come back for our practicums and, they do great with it. But I think it's kind of an investment in the future, really, of their own lives. Like I know that in 10 years, taking the time to like invest in themselves and to learn through a strong college education will pay a lot more off for them personally than if they just jump straight into the industry, which again, there's going to be outliers on both sides. I always tell people like it's ultimately going to be your call on what you're trying to do. But yeah, I'm always going to advocate for, getting at least some education. It makes you more well-rounded.
I need this episode not to make it to my wife's ears because we have this debate all the time. She has a master's. She teaches at a community college.
Yeah.
And I often argue, like, you don't need a degree. You don't need 4 years of school.
Right.
But yes, there's absolutely benefit in education. And, is a tech director going to benefit from, calculus? I don't know about that. But
Right.
will they benefit from, like, writing classes and business courses and
Sure.
psychology? Absolutely.
Right.
Well, and Toby's also one class shy of
Not
his
even a
bachelor's
class.
degree.
Not even a class.
Okay.
I have never said this on the podcast here.
That's why I want you to bring it up.
From my Christian university, I have 140 credits.
Huh.
The only thing I'm missing is a piano proficiency test for
That's
my
great.
degree.
Yeah.
So that's it.
So Ryan, we actually had you on the podcast to knight Toby a college degree. Like,
Yeah, can I-
See if we could waive that.
Yeah, how do like
proficiency
presidents
test.
and
Yeah.
like Nobel Prize winners get the honorary
Honoraries, yeah.
degrees?
Yeah.
Like, can I get one of those?
I think we figured it out. What's really funny, my undergrad was music, and I nobody told me, so I did a associate's in music, transferred into a 4-year university in California, CSU, and nobody told me about the piano proficiency test, and I was a guitar major. I knew a little bit of piano, but
See, it's just not
yeah,
right. Is
no,
what you're
no
saying.
one told me about it. So I crammed piano. I took I was a pastor, worship pastor at the time. They let me just take a week. I'm like, I'm going to go sit at a piano for a week and get it. So I just sat down, got the thing done, went in and did the test.
I think Ryan's smarter than me because there's
Nope.
I tried to
just
do that
repetition.
in a year.
Hang on.
It was
Well,
just scales. I just ran scales and scales and scales. And
protecting the boss's ego is a high priority for me. So here's what we're gonna do. You can Iron Man, Spider-Man him, right? When Iron Man just puts his hand on Peter's shoulder and says, "I dubbed thee an Avenger." You can do that for him right now and make him a college grad.
I don't have that power yet till
Yes,
I'm
you
at
do.
like an official doctor. Like I don't
Okay.
have the
Although I was
PhD
thinking
done yet.
we're at Willow Creek right now. I'm sure there's 2 pianos. He can just, if he did it in a
See the
week,
proficiency. Yeah.
then we'll just sit down together. Repetition, he said.
Right.
Yeah, we'll film it. We'll send it in to them. Okay. All jokes aside, though, I really do want to drill down into that more about the reasons to go to college versus the real world experience. And
Yeah.
I don't say it combatively at all.
Yeah, sure.
I think there's a lot of merit on all sides to all arguments in life, and we never.
And you're a rare guest for us in that you are advocating for more education.
Sure.
Whereas most of our guests are like, yeah, I went to college for a semester or a year and then just left and,
Yeah. I
real
mean,
world.
I have this conversation with prospective students, current students all the time. Like at the end of the day, it's gonna especially getting involved in tech, you kind of are, it's the same thing as being like a strong worship leader. Like you could make yourself very marketable just by being a fantastic singer or player. And the education will really not make that big of a difference. So really, the only thing I can advocate for is I just genuinely think it will make you a smarter person. Even like you'd mentioned calculus, just learning calculus, the process that puts your brain through will just pay dividends for the way you think about things in the future.
Let me see if I can reframe it. Does it almost? I reiterate things to make sure I know them.
Yeah.
Does it almost feel as if the mental exercise of learning something, even if it's not directly applicable to your field of study, trains your brain to learn new things that you might need in the future?
Yeah.
Like almost like a
Yeah.
muscle.
Yeah, it makes your brain better. Yeah.
But do you think Blake could learn calculus? Because, he's a pretty face, but he is dumb.
Oh man, I'll take that pretty face compliment
You could take-
all
yeah.
day.
Yeah, you can. Calculus. I ended up, long story there too, but when I first started college, I was thinking I was going to get into computer science. So I ended up getting up through calculus 3 and then didn't need about 18 units worth of math by the time I was done with it. But I just mastered the theory courses. And there was definitely I could definitely feel the mathematical connection with music theory. And so, yeah, it all kind of just plays together.
My
So,
brain
yeah,
hurts already.
You can learn it.
Yeah, no, I dropped out of AP Stats right before my senior year in high school and was like, I'll take it's
Right.
called discrete math, which was code for Blackman High School's we're just going to chill.
Yeah.
It was,
That's why you're dumb.
yeah, I cannot, the math, I got the calculator on my
Sure.
phone,
Yeah.
Well,
there was a provincial, the Lord moved it there too. My wife ended up being, she was a math teacher. Now she's robotics and computer science. But yeah, the Lord put that together. Now my wife and I can communicate.
I
Yeah.
think we have the smartest family, on our podcast
There you
right
go.
now that we've ever had.
Well, and Toby's wife's a college professor. My wife's a college professor.
Yeah,
I already
really?
said that about
Yeah.
your wife. I'm
Dang.
There it is.
our
Yeah.
wives.
Look
they're
at
the-
us, 2 dummies and a smart person with college professors as wives.
That's great.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, I know for me, getting like a church music degree, and then I was just talking to a guy at a major Christian university, and talking about how, like, you get a degree in production or worship ministry, and it's like 90% of your classes are just general education or music history, and there's very little like real world practical experience on doing tech or doing worship leading. Like, how at the Beloningco are you giving these students just the opportunity to cut their teeth?
So the
services.
practicum is their hands-on experience. I do love, like, I mean, you can go to, I would just kind of Google Southeastern University's degree plans. Like, the degree plans are actually put together really well. So there's a lot of like worship leading courses. There's a lot of like tech courses. But then at the Beloningco, you get the hands-on experience. The practicum is basically a 3-unit course that students take every semester while they're there. And that's where they get the opportunity to sit under, all of our production people, our worship artists. Like, they spend time with them. Like the worship people, for instance, wrote a song and had it like critiqued by some of the artists at the church, and kind of had that like rubbing shoulders with that. And the tech guys, they have a fantastic time because they just they get right into the fold, and they help run everything. And some of them are just fantastic, got fantastic ears. So,
Are you seeing any trends? Because like we mentioned the trend of seeing people drop out real quick. I mean, you're on the other side of it. We'd love to hear any of that. Like, are you seeing trends in the education space with church techs, with worship leaders? Like, how's any of those you could illuminate us to?
I mean, Belonging's only been at it for a couple years. We just graduated like 10 students this semester, graduated. Like, we still don't even have like a 4-year program, but we'll see more out of the Belonging. I just know personally, like, thinking over the scope of like all the worship leaders and techs and stuff that I've talked to, it's really like a longevity thing. I think like a lot of times I see the people that jump straight into something at 18 without like really taking a step back and trying to build themselves, often burn out. And I guess, I mean, ultimately this is all anecdotal. No, that's kind of just what.
Wait, you didn't bring statistically significant evidence to
I mean, I guess you can see,
podcast?
like, that's as a PhD, I'm like just getting into the dissertation.
You did calculus 3, so statistics should be
it's all the research
no problem.
side
We're
of it,
two dummies. You don't need sources with us.
I like data. I mean, I like data. I like sources. like I'm looking forward to like 5-10 years from now, seeing like what it means for the Belonging. But
starting a college feels a lot like starting a bourbon company. It's a lot of work when you're first starting, but then starts paying dividends later.
Right.
Let's get back to the burnout. Because we see an alarming amount of that, right? And it's very concerning. Do you feel like getting your 4-year degree really kind of helps you prevent against burnout, because it gives you like a holistic view? Don't let me put words in your mouth.
Sure.
I'm honestly just looking for some optimism on how to prevent burnout, because it's prevalent through our people.
Right. I think there's I mean, this is part of where my dissertation's going, is to kind of see the heart of where worship and church growth and all that is. I think we're on the COVID probably kicked it really hard, but like jumping everybody online and now everybody kind of coming back and finding this balance of church. I just think the whole church industry, if you will, is going through some sort of a shift, and I don't know precisely what it's turning into. But a lot of the burnout I see right now, I feel like can come from our church shut down, so we turned our entire creative production team into like a video studio, and we're just going to create content constantly. And now we're opened again, but we don't want to let go of that content, but we're not going to also hire double the staff to be able to handle it. So I'm seeing a lot of the like guys are like, okay, I'm out. I can't deal with this anymore.
That's terrifying to me, because as a content guy myself, I can totally see that scenario playing out where you don't want to let content go. If you don't
you
keep
started it, so you have to keep it up.
But I've also seen businesses do that. I hate to say businesses and churches in the same sentence, but a lot of businesses will grow their output without growing their staff.
Right.
If I had to give Toby a compliment, he's really good at that. We've been I don't
just pour it on, Blake. Come on.
I don't want to do this, but he's been Church Gear's staff's been growing at the same rate, or trying to, as our growth, and so that's terrifying to me. That I was looking for some optimism, and that just sounds like it's going to.
That's the reason I think it's happening. But the optimism on it, I think, is just genuine, honest, open conversations. Before I was over at Belonging, I was a worship and experience pastor at that church for 20 years, and I had long-standing relationship with the lead pastor there, and there was a lot of like open and honest conversations about like, hey, this isn't sustainable. Like, you really need like, for the production guy, whoever your direct report is, you need like a really good rapport with them. You need to have them help understand what your workflow is, what your workload is, so that they can advocate for you with your lead pastor, with your team to be able to hire for you. A lot of times for me, it'd be like, here's the 3 things we can do. I don't have enough like team to be able to pull off all 3. I want to let one go. So I'd present it all to the lead pastor, and we'd decide, okay, let's not do this, or let's get a contractor to make sure we're doing all of it. So the optimism, I guess, is open and honest relationship and conversation with your leaders.
Okay, I wanted to ask, you're been in education space for a long time, and you've got big dreams and big ideas. What are some things, either like at the Beloningco College, you are working towards that are really cool that you guys are going to do, or something that you've dreamed of being able to do that you can't yet, but it's on the dream board?
Honestly, for us, we just want to serve as many students as we can. And having only been 2 years, when I came on board, like the joke about the Belonging is kind of we're a bus that's running 60 miles an hour down the road, putting a wheel on while we're going. And then like one of our
That doesn't sound like any other company I know.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. One of our executive pastors jokes now, they're like, well, now we're an airplane and we're trying to put one of the wings on.
You jump off a cliff and try and assemble the airplane on the way down.
Trying to get the thing going.
Yep.
But we just want to make sure that we're like really like kingdom-minded, servant-hearted students. Like we want them to come through it feeling like they're valued as people more than anything else, and to carry that like such a healthy culture at our church for our volunteers and our staff. We want them to carry that culture out into more churches, and to help, like in a little way, we want to help plant seeds that way.
Ryan, I want to pitch you on something. This is a surprise pitch. I didn't tell you.
Sure.
This would happen ahead of time. I want you to consider adding a course at the Beloningco, and it's the Hard Conversations course. Because seriously, that's Lee Fields. That's what he said on our episode a couple episodes back.
Yeah.
That he put out a challenge. He said, just have a hard conversation this week. I think he said 5.
Yeah.
He's like, write down the things, I'm paraphrasing horribly here, but essentially that are bothering you, that you need to just talk to your head pastor about, navigate through that. And you're both, like, a lot of times, and Todd Elliott said this, that like on a previous episode, the pastor doesn't realize what they're asking.
Right.
You got to talk to them so that they know, like, they asked you for 80 hours on an accident.
Right.
So what do you think about that? Having a hard conversations course, I think that'd be really helpful.
It's part of our practicum, honestly. Like we have panels on that. I taught a course last semester called Leading Team-Driven Organizations, so that was a couple weeks worth of like discussion, honestly. So yeah, we got a good program.
He's way ahead of you, Blake. He's working on his PhD, and you dumb.
You're right though. I mean, those honest conversations are key. And then I always bring a caveat, like, there's no promise that like anyone's lead pastor is going to be like this perfect person, and I think we need to understand that they're not. So just because we present it to them doesn't mean they're going to see our side entirely, and you got to just like network through that, or not network, navigate that.
How about I pitch something to him that I think he'll actually love?
Wait, hang on. Let me respond to what he said then there. Yes, have that hard conversation, and honestly, in that conversation, if I could give you any encouragement, dear listener, it's not that they can fix your problem immediately, because almost no boss can. As long as your boss, direct report, your pastor, whoever is willing to just have the conversation, that's the biggest step.
Sure.
Which is something Toby also does well. All right, what are you going to say?
I'm pitching that we need some Beloningco students, either during the program or post, that want to, partner with us at Church Gear.
Yeah. This is the whole reason we brought you on.
It's
a real moment.
I'm just trying to get more employees. Because you said, as we're growing, I'm trying to get employees. So welcome, Ryan Loche.
Yeah, there's ways to figure out how to make that happen. We just got to figure out, like I said, I'm part of the glue that helps figure out how to make it like accredited and like balanced with what SEU needs out of what they're trying to get. But yeah.
And we don't want the duds. We want just the good ones.
All of our students are fantastic. I hope they're all listening
I
to
knew
this.
he was going to say that the moment you did it.
They're all wonderful people.
I would say that about my employees, but I do have one that's kind of a dud.
Is he right here?
Wait a minute.
He's somewhere.
I have so many responses to that, and I'm going to hold them in because I really want to get to this question. Okay, last one before we get to your tech takeaway. What is essentially the biggest thing people miss out on when they just get real world experience? They skip the foundational book knowledge, they skip the college, the degree, and they just go out into the world. If you were having that moment where someone's like, I'm about to leave, and you're like, that's fine, do what's best for you, here's what you'll miss.
Yeah. Again, coming from the guy that's working on a PhD, I'm in education, and I'm almost like legally obligated to advocate for school. But I think a lot of times we don't know what the entirety of our life is going to be. When I started a master's program, I did it kind of just because I did an undergrad in music, and then I did a master's in theology. because I wanted to be a worship pastor. So I was like music and a pastoral, and I did it just for that. I, at the time, had no clue that I would be getting into education, that the Lord would draw me into doing this PhD. So, I mean, especially with tech, there may be times where you kind of need to bivocationally do stuff. You may want to start your own side hustle in tech, but it would help you to have a degree to be able to go pay the bills for a little bit. So I'd say at 18, it's a whole lot easier to start doing some education than when you're 30 and you got a kid and you're married and you have a house and a mortgage and all that. So there's never a better time to try to lay some groundwork than 18.
And that's a really good point, because and this is kind of tragic, but we see a lot of tech directors bivocational or side hustling because they're not getting paid enough. And so that is a good point that could help.
Yep.
Well, okay, Ryan, I want to get your tech takeaway.
Okay.
So essentially, imagine you're a tech at a church. It's your Sunday. What's something you would tell them that would make their Sunday better? This could be technical, could be philosophical.
Yeah.
Essentially, we love to get the weird tip that you have found in your life of this is something that helps that no one would ever think of. It's kind of your unique flavor of advice.
On how to encourage the techs on the weekend?
How to encourage them. Essentially just something that would make their Sundays better.
Snacks are always, that's kind of a low-hanging fruit thing. We would always hit on, especially when we were running into the Christmas program where we have to manually do 1,500 cues and then give me a microphone and let's run up there. I think having fun as a team is a big thing, and encouraging them that we care more about who they are than what they do, which has been a big theme of this whole FILO conference that we've been at. That's not a new thought, but God has genuinely cared about who everybody is versus the actual effort that goes into the week or into the weekend service. And for me, when I was directly over techs, my big thing was always trying to run interference for the mistakes that were naturally going to happen, is to make them not beat themselves up over it. Now, if they're making the same mistake for 6 weeks, then that's, different kind of conversation that I got to go have with them throughout the week. But those little flubs that the lead pastor is going to have a real big problem with, I would always do my best to kind of run interference on that, encourage them, and then go to the lead pastor and, try to smooth it over on his side.
I like that. Good culture creating and a kindness in accountability.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, is there anything you'd like to plug, man? We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, come to the Beloningco College. I do a podcast too, Church Collective Worship Leader Podcast. Been doing that for a real long time. Probably a bunch of other things I'm not thinking about, but yeah, I'm all over the place. Find me on Instagram, TikTok.
He's just going to plug education.
Yeah. Get educated, people.
He's plugging the hole in the quickly draining intelligence of the world with education.
As you are a prime example of, Blake.
Oh, I'm the first one out that hole.
Gosh.
All right. So, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for listening. And hey, congratulations on surviving Sunday. If you happen to make it through next Sunday as well, join us again for your weekly Tech Breather.
Blake, as you can hear in the background, we have hundreds of our friends walking by, all our tech director friends. I wish I could tell them something. What would I want to tell them?
Well, we would tell them that education is valuable, and we would tell them you should get an education on this episode. You should text it to a buddy.
Absolutely, because if you are going to get education anywhere, it'd definitely be the Church Gear podcast.
Yep, via our intelligence that we got from the Beloningco. So take this episode link, text it to a friend. Don't do it later. Do it right now, because you're saving their life with that education.